Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Katie.
Guess what?
What? Chicken butt?
No, but we do have, some listeners these days. More.
Yeah.
We're growing in popularity.
That's awesome.
That's how we fucking roll.
That's right.
But so I was thinking this thing, because, that means that we're using more bandwidth and stuff on our, host site. And then, we actually have to pay for shit now.
Whoa.
So I was thinking that some of our listeners, or even maybe some people our listeners know, might want to, sponsor us.
Ooh.
We could do in this little weird spot right here where people are wondering why the hell we're talking before the music has even started.
Yeah.
It could be your commercial.
There you go.
And Sharon and I would be talking like this and going, hey, guess what? This product is fucking awesome and you should totes use it.
That's right.
That would be rad, wouldn't it?
It'd be sweet.
So, yeah, I'm going to put some details on our blog. I'm actually going to make a tab about it on our blog so that people can go there and read it. So go to twoartsygals.wordpress.com and look on the sponsorship opportunities tab, and you can find out how awesome it'll be, because it'll be super affordable. You'll feel like you're stealing from us, I swear. Check it out.
Unicorns and glitter and taxidermy critters are just some of the things they like. They also enjoy 80s hair bands, Grizzly Adams and John Goodman, so if you think that's weird, then you can take a hike. But the things they enjoy the most are making art and cracking jokes, so without further ado, here are your hosts. You've got your two artsy gals, your two artsy gals. Here are your two artsy gals.
Hey everybody, this is Katie.
And this is Sharon.
And you are listening to the Two Artsy Gals podcast.
Woo!
Woohoo! So this week, Sharon and I are going to be talking about bookbinding. We did an episode, I think over the summer, about altered books. And I think we touched briefly on bookbinding in that episode, but decided that it was probably something that deserved its own chunk of time. We're just going to get into a little bit about how to do it and why you would do it.
Great. I don't know much about it, so I'm excited to learn some more about it.
Right on. Well,
and I know there's lots of different techniques.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be able to talk specifically about every technique, but I'm just going to give you an overview and talk about the techniques that I like to use. So really, first and foremost, you kind of want to maybe figure out how you would use a handbound book. People use them for, I make and sell handbound journals and sketchbooks. Mm-hmm. So that's what I use those for. But you can use them to make your own journals and sketchbooks. You can, use them for altered books. A lot of times you can make an alter a book by binding pages into another cover or something like that. A lot of people just use those journals are a piece of artwork in themselves. There are so many different ways you can do them and so many different things you can use them for. And I think I like making them because it feels like I like making things like that feel so complete to me. And I especially enjoy giving them as gifts.
And I was so fortunate to get one of your books
I gave
for
Sharon
my birthday.
One for her birthday.
Oh my God.
Day.
I friggin' love it so much.
I'm so glad you like it. I love it so much, and those.
I so wish I had it a few weeks earlier, because I really needed a journal for something, and I started a different journal. So it just means that it's meant for something else, because sometimes I use my journals not just for writing my journal stuff, but something specific. I might use it as a dream journal or something, but I love it. I love it so much, because it's just I don't know, I've had a couple other handmade journals. There's just something really special about them. Well,
that's why I like making them. I don't know, it feels like I'm making something with a lot of meaning and a lot of purpose.
They do. They're functional. They're a piece of artwork. I don't know, it's something I will totally treasure forever, and those books are, I don't know, I agree. I love books. I love to touch books. I love the, everything about them.
Yeah.
And then that's why I love journals too.
Well, and I like, even they don't have to be super fancy. Like, you can just, like, sometimes I whip one together if I want, like, I have one that I use just specifically for sketches that I'm, like, when I'm working out art ideas or, like, ideas for pieces that I'm going to be doing or series that I'll be working on. And I want to have all of those drawings and sketches in one place. And be able to reference them. I just whip up a little small journal and, and sew it up. And so I'll actually get into why because the journals that I do, I use the Coptic binding, and I like that because it lays flat. Mm-hmm. The whole book opens flat and can lay down flat so that you can draw or sketch in them. Or if you're doing, using it for an art journal and you're collaging pages or whatever, it all lays down perfectly flat so you can use them. But, again, you can use them for anything. Mm-hmm. So, and they're super great. And if you are unfamiliar with them, I would do a search. Pinterest is a good place to look, or anywhere on the internet, and just search for hand-bound journals or hand-bound books. And there are just some beautiful, amazing pieces of work out there.
And I hope that you'll put some of your samples on the blog.
Yeah, I'll post pictures of, I'm going to post the picture that I have on my Katie Cahill Art Facebook page, the one of all the, where it's the row of them. You know which one I'm talking about? That it shows the stitching and the binding on the back of all the books that it's a really cool picture. But yeah, I'll definitely put some pictures of the journals that I make and also some of the books that I've bound for doing round robin art swaps and stuff.
That would be great, because those books are amazing. And maybe you could put some samples or tutorials or something on the different types of, like, how to bind the books, or like the technique that you use. I will, because I'll talk about her at the end. There's a lady that does some really great videos on YouTube that I really like. But first, I'm going to get into tools and what you need to do. Awesome. What you need. So you will need an awl. Like, if you don't know what that is, it's just a thing you use to poke holes in shit, basically. It's like a skinny ice pick, right? Yeah,
a skinny ice pick. The one that I have, I prefer, it kind of has an oval shaped ball on the end of it. It's a big wooden handle, and I like the shape of the ball. It lets you push really hard, and you have a bigger gripping area. That's just my preference. You'll want a hole punch, but not like a punching holes in paper, like squeezy handle one. I use the ones that come with a hammer. Okay. So you can also buy screw punches, is what they're called, but I'm not going to say brand names because I don't want to say bad shit about other companies, but there is a certain brand that is by a certain lady that we all know. And I've had 2 of them and they just blew apart. Oh. They come apart. So those, like, they make a Japanese screw punch that is brass. And it's a really nice, but they are a pretty huge investment, and it's just not an expense that I've been able to justify yet. But but it's because if you just get the little hole punch, I have one that has 3 different bits, and you just use a hammer with it and whack it. You'll need a bone folder. And a lot of people, I thought for a long time I could get away with not using a bone folder, so I used like a ruler edge or something like that. But if you're doing a lot of these and you want a nice professional look and you want it to be easy on your hands, just invest in a bone folder.
Yeah, I kind of learned that.
So, yeah. And like mine, the one I use has a nice little, it's very ergonomically shaped for your hand. So my hand doesn't get tired, because I'll explain what these are here in a second. But when you're folding a lot of signatures to go into a book, it's a repetitive motion for a long time, and you want a tool in your hand that's made to do that job. Yeah. And you'll want bookbinding needles, which you can buy. They're just a heavier needle with a bigger hole to get bigger thread through. You can also use a heavy upholstery needle for that. Whatever you figure out. I'll put some links up for products that I prefer to use. Great. So people can see them. You'll want beeswax. And you can get just like little bars of beeswax at the craft store, or you can get the cool beeswax that comes usually in your beading supplies, and it's a round cake of beeswax, and then it has the little plastic thing that snaps over it with grooves so you can pull thread through that. Have you ever seen those?
Yeah, I think so. I just use a block.
Yeah, I just use the block, but I also have one of those other ones for, I don't know where I got it. People give me shit all the time. You'll need a straight edge, an X-Acto blade or a craft knife, and scissors. And if you have a paper cutter, you can use that too because you are going to be cutting a lot of paper. So the materials that you're going to need are bookboard or other sturdy materials for covers. Now, I use bookboard when I'm making the journals that I'm going to sell. Bookboard is just a heavy, like if you pick up a hardbound book, maybe you can like knock on that. It's a heavy, dense, kind of cardboard, but it's a really sturdy, thick, heavy cardboard that I think some of it seems to be treated on the outside, like it's maybe laminated or something. I don't know, like a laminate. It's all pushed together. But anyway, it's just a really dense cardboard. You don't have to use that. I've seen a lot of people use cereal boxes, candy boxes. Corrugated cardboard doesn't work so great in most situations unless you want it to have that look.
Yeah.
But you'll need something for the covers. You're going to need paper to make the signatures. You can use Are the signatures the pages? Yeah, the pages. So the paper that you'll use depends on what you want to do. Some journals that I like to use that really super nice, thick, heavy, cold pressed watercolor paper. And some most of the ones that I sell, I use sketchbook paper. You can use any kind of paper in them though, honestly. Whatever you want to do for the cover, like, I think I'll keep the covers a little bit separate as far as, because you can choose to decorate them however you want to. You can cover them in cloth, you can cover them in paper, but this is I'm just going to keep it to binding for now. And people are kind of intimidated by it, but I really feel that this is one of those things that once you just sit down and do it, it's not so intimidating. Cool. You just sit down and you figure it out. It took me a couple of times to do it where I made a couple of really shitty books, but I learned something every time I made them. And it's not so freaky now. Yeah. So signatures.
Well, you obviously got it down. I mean, your books are gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. And there's so much else to learn too. Like there are so many other methods that like I've kind of perfected the Coptic binding, but there are a million other options. I'll kind of go through a little bit of those here in a second. But first I want to, because I've mentioned signatures a couple times and you asked about them. And yes, it is the paper, but for most bindings, some you don't have to do this, but in the Coptic binding books that I do and in a lot of books, other books, a signature is generally, depending on how thick your paper is, probably, I would say I use like 5 to 7 pieces of paper folded in half and scored heavily, like with your, use your bone folder and go over it so it closes really flat. But that section of paper folded in half, so it looks like a little booklet itself, is called a signature.
Oh, okay.
So what you do with those for the Coptic method and for like the long stitch method, and there are a few others, in those signatures, so you'll make your signatures and you'll fold however many you want in your book. So anywhere from 5 to, however, how thick you want your book, you get those signatures and you would stack them up and then you make lines down them so it marks where you're going to poke the holes in the signatures. And then, then you use your awl to poke holes along the fold of those signatures. So that's what you're going to sew through.
So how do you get the pages to be even? Because if you're folding them and sticking them inside each other, then do you have to go back and trim them?
I fold them all at once. I don't fold them individually. It's a matter of getting them really flat with the bone folder.
And they line up?
Yep. If they start bulging out, you have too many papers in your signature. Because you're not stacking, you just want a few pieces. Okay. So like 5 to 6, really. Sometimes if you have, like when I use the cold press watercolor paper, sometimes I only use 2 or 3 pages folded in half. Okay. Because they're too thick. So it's really folding them with the bone folder.
Okay.
that gets them and makes them stay even.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have different binding types, and I'm just going to briefly go over these. And this is by no means a complete list of your options here. You have Japanese binding, which you go through holes punched in the paper and in the cover, and it ends up looking a little bit like a blanket stitch.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then there's perfect binding, which is a glued binding that's kind of like you would see for magazines or paperback books.
Okay.
Spiral binding, because you can buy a machine that binds books with a little spiral, like a spiral bound notebook.
Mm-hmm.
Case binding, which is like a hardbound book. You can bind with woven ribbons. You can bind with you weave chopsticks through slits in the pages or skewers.
Oh, cool.
I've seen that done. There's the two that I like are long stitch binding and Coptic binding. And as I mentioned, the reason I like those is because it allows you to open up the book and have it lay flat.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that I do most often is the Coptic stitch, just because I like the way it looks.
Uh-huh.
Personally, I feel I like the little chain of stitches that it leaves on the binding that you can see. I just think it looks really neat.
Cool.
So I am going to talk a little bit specifically about Coptic binding, but before I go into that, did you have any questions on anything that I've covered so far?
No, I don't think so. I'm excited to go and look at my journal that you made me and go and look online at some of the different bindings.
Yeah, if you look up some of those, you can find some really great pictures that'll show you specifically. And people get really artful in the way that they do their stitching, because you don't, like, the journals that I sell, I generally just do a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a pretty evenly spaced rows of stitches, but you can do those rows in twos and then one in the middle. Like, you can change them around. They don't have to be evenly spaced. You can do them in shapes. Like, I've seen people do them like X's across the back in Coptic. Like, there are just so many different ways you can do it that makes your book even more beautiful.
Cool.
So many options with it. Just briefly, and this is something that you really have to, I think you're going to have to go watch videos. And again, I will give you a YouTube channel to go to specifically here at the end of this. So you have your signatures that you've stacked, and you've already got all the holes poked in them. So it's really important when you're doing Coptic binding to sew your signatures together in the order that you stacked them.
Okay.
Because even though you think you've made a perfectly straight line, your line's probably a little bit off. And if they don't get sewn together in the order that they were marked, then you're going to end up with little wibbly jibblies in your stitch lines. So you're going to set out your stitches, and just briefly, you pick up a signature to start. So you have your thread. Now actually I didn't talk about thread. Oh my God, I totally forgot that. I'm going to backpedal here and talk about your bookbinding thread, because that is also a supply that you need, and I think I totally skipped over it. That's another thing that you'll need. And you can buy bookbinding thread, which is generally just like a linen thread, or you can make your own, which is, I sometimes do it with a embroidery thread, and that's where the beeswax comes in. You just rub wax on it, like, probably 3 or 4 times. If you get too much wax on it, it starts getting kind of crumbly and weird. But you just run, you hold the thread on the wax bar with your thumb and just pull it through.
Okay.
And just wax it. You'll want kind of a heavy thread. Sometimes I've bound smaller books with coat thread. Like button thread, the real heavy duty stuff. Yeah. You can use ribbons. Like, you're not just limited to bookbinding thread. Cool. But they do make a specific one, and I'll post the ones that pictures of the ones I like. It comes in all different colors. And again, if you make your own, you have a million different choices of colors, because we use the embroidery floss to do it, then the choices are endless. Right. So you'll thread your needle with the bookbinding thread. And generally, I try to do probably 3 times the length of the spine. 3 to 4 times in thread. With the Coptic binding, it kind of doesn't matter if you run out of thread, because you can just start over again. Like, the Coptic binding is really easy to just start with a new string.
Oh, nice.
Other things are really, really, you have to have way more thread than you need.
Uh-huh.
So how you start though, you go in, you open up your signature, and you have your thread knotted, it's doubled through, and you start in the first hole, and you poke it in and pull it out. So you're starting from the inside and pulling out. And then the first row you're attaching to the cover.
Oh, okay.
So you have it stacked on top of your cover, and you've pulled the thread through, and then you come up underneath. So you're kind of you wrap around and come up underneath and come through the hole in the signature. So it's kind of looped through, and then you just go back through the signature hole.
Okay.
So now it's looped around. And you go through that whole first row doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you pull in your next signature, and you do the same way. You go in from the outside, or go in from the outside this time, and then come down to the second hole in the signature. And instead of looping it around the cover, you're looping it around the stitch below. So all you're doing is going from the inside out with the needle on the signature, looping, catching the stitches below, and then going back in the signature hole. So it makes this cool little chain stitch.
Oh, cool.
And you do that all the way down with every signature. And again, I'm not giving you instructions that I'm expecting you to listen to and go, oh, cool, that's how you do it, because you're going to have to see it done.
Right.
Like, and even in my case, I have 2 really great book recommendations, but even reading in those books for me, I'm not the kind of person that can read something and look at pictures and get it.
Right. This would probably constitute a YouTube video.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Sharon.
Yeah?
I love you, so I'm going to tell you right now there's an earwig on the shutters behind you.
Oh my god, thank you.
So smash that motherfucker, because those bite, you know.
I've been bit by one.
I have 2. It clamped onto my fucking foot. It hurts.
Ow.
Bastards.
Well, I flung it.
Good.
Okay.
All right,
thanks.
So anyway, that's kind of, that is just a very basic description of what to do, how you do the Coptic stitch. So how I learned to do it and how I recommend all of you to do it. And I'm going to give you actually a link to this woman's channel. It's a YouTube channel. Her name is Sea Lemon, and she has like SEA lemon, as in the fruit. She, I think, has an instructional video for every binding that I talked about today.
Cool.
And she has instructional videos on how to make your own thread, your own bookbinding thread.
Awesome.
And she does other really cool shit. Like, she's awesome. So
cool. I have to check it out.
I've looked at a lot of instructional videos to try to figure this out over the years, and hers are by far the best. They're the best videos. She does really professional quality videos too. So, you know, nice. I don't know about you, but I hate those fucking YouTube videos that are all like sucky.
Blurry?
Like blurry, or like people are moving around, or the lighting's shitty, or they're playing music and you can't fucking hear what they're saying, just whatever. I hate that shit. This lady's videos are professional and really great, and I'm going to put a link to her YouTube channel, and maybe I'll just put a link also to her video on the Coptic stitch.
Cool.
But she'll teach you, it's great. And the books that I use, and these books give you some great ideas. My first one, though, it's called Making Handmade Books, 100 Plus Bindings, Structures, and Forms. And it's by Alisa Golden, Alisa Golden. And I'll link this book, too. I'm going to show Sharon the cover of it.
Oh, awesome.
And it is, well, let me see. It's over 200 pages. 248 pages of books that gives you ideas. It shows you, breaks it down. It shows you Coptic stitching, long stitching. It even shows you how to do box books. Like, there are just a million different ideas in here. It's crazy. You can do accordion folded books. It has a little bit of everything in it. And it just gives you some really fantastic ideas and inspiration.
Awesome.
So, and there's even stuff in here that I'm like, oh man, how the fuck am I going to do that? Like, I'm a little bit intimidated by some of this. And I can Coptic stitch and put together a journal in like 10 minutes. And some of these I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
So, but it is just full. It's a beautiful book. The pictures are beautiful. And it is full of some pretty mind-blowing ideas. And it specifically references a few bookbinding artists too. And it also has some sections about talking, it gives you a breakdown of some of the materials, and it talks about needles and thread and how to calculate your thread length and different paper options and templates. It's a really great resource to have in your studio if you're interested in bookbinding at all.
Great. Yeah, it looks like a beautiful book.
And I have another book that was so funny. This was in my Amazon wish list forever, and I wanted it for Christmas a few years ago, and my husband didn't get it, and I was super bummed. And then I went down to visit my friend Cindy in the Bay Area in California, and she's like, hey, I bought this book for myself, and then my husband got me one for Christmas. Do you want my copy? I was like, fuck yes, I want your copy. But
oh my god, awesome.
It's called How to Make Books. Fold, Cut, and Stitch Your Way to a One-of-a-Kind Book, and it's by Esther K. Smith. And it's a neat book too. And it just has, this is another one that it has a lot of instruction on how to do the stitches, on how to do the folding, materials, different kinds of books that you can do. And this one gets really creative with like you're using cereal boxes, or just even some of them are like kind of almost origami folded books.
Cool.
Or how to make instant zines. Like, it's also a really, really, really great resource, and it has become an invaluable thing in my studio.
Awesome. It almost sounds like that one would be good for kids too, maybe, if there's just some basic folding.
Yeah, there are, but the instructions. I think it would be really great for adults to read and then translate kind of to kid.
Oh, okay.
Level. They're pretty intense still. Like, the instructions are pretty. Maybe an older kid who has like really specific, like attention to detail kind of kid or something like that.
Yeah.
But
okay.
That would be really good. But I'll link both these books, and I'm going to link to Sea Lemon's site. Do you have any questions before we wrap it up here, Sharon? Did I
don't
miss
think
anything?
So I'm excited to look at some of these links. My son's really into making books and, doing little comic books and stuff like that. So I think I'm going to really check out the site.
I think that the next time you guys are in town, Sterling needs to come have a bookmaking date at my house.
Yeah.
And I will totally teach him how to sew his own books together.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So, because I taught my niece Bailey how to do it a couple of years ago, so I don't know. She wouldn't have been that much older than he is now, but I think I could teach him how to do it.
Cool.
He's a smart kid, and he's super creative.
Yeah.
So
that would be awesome.
a bookmaking date. But anyway, if you have any questions or any spectacular books that you've made that you want to send us pictures of, or you have any methods that I didn't mention here that you think I need to know about, you can go ahead and send us an email at twoartsygals@gmail.com. And I'm going to have, like I said, a bunch of links up for this episode. And I think you're really going to love both of the books that I talked about today and the videos on Sea Lemon's YouTube page, because they're pretty freaking awesome. So I'll put those up in this episode. And that is... Were you going to say something?
No, it's sweet. I'm excited to look at the episode, or the
That
links.
totally threw me off because you sounded like, I thought you were going to say something. And I'm like, No. Well, that was just weird. But anyway, you can find all of that in the show notes on our blog at twoartsygals.wordpress.com. And I hope you go check it out, and I hope you make yourself a book, because I think you'll love it. And don't be fucking intimidated by it, because it's totally not as intimidating as you think it is.
Awesome. I'm going to make a book.
Right on. I hope you do. All right. Until next time, you can make some cool shit, yo.
Yo!
Bye.